Suchi Daki Jinyan Gipe Sananki Trola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Shuyang Soki Jognama Chakshu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Jinyan Gipe Sananki Trola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chuyang Soki Chognama Chakshu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Chenyen Gipe Sunamki Trola Panchir Sangye Druparsho.
Yay. So for those who weren't here last week, is Richard logged in by any chance?
I don't think so. No, we don't have any viewers.
Okay. He might catch it afterwards if it's recorded. So for those who weren't here last week, we're starting a new second phase of the course in which Vilma will be teaching from classes 7 through 10. Mm-hmm. And the idea that we wanted to do here is to have you have an opportunity to study with different people who did the long retreat and get the benefits of studying with different people and having them share their experiences and their teachings with you in a direct way. So we're, for the first time ever that I've known of, we split an ACI course amongst two teachers like this. And the idea is to give you the benefit of actually having another teacher who did the 3-year retreat. And she's got a lot of insight that she can convey to you. More than that, she is also the only one I know, besides Fran, who was actually at the original teaching of this course. So this course was originally taught in 1993. I heard you talking to Davis about it. Yeah. And you were there. Mm-hmm. So it's a very auspicious to have a lineage there. It's a loom from Geshe-la to you and you to everybody else here. So that's another very good reason to have Vilma here teaching. So this is Vilma Staiano.
Hi.
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 And Vilma's a senior student of Geshe-la and all the ACI teachings. So she's got a lot to offer, and it's going to be really exciting. So tonight, what we're going to do in class 6 is I'll do some of the questions, she'll do some of the questions. So we'll just flip-flop back and forth. Okay. Any questions about that? I think we'll keep everything pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. Although, as you know, we can't really start at 7:30, so 7:45 is probably a more realistic start time for your planning and stuff for the future.
We'll keep it scheduled at 7:30 though?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Is the yoga still going to continue at that time? Yeah. Yeah, just so you know.
Okay.
Maybe one day we'll get in at 7:30. It's okay. So yeah, keep it scheduled at 7:30. The other thing we thought we'd try to do is somehow try to avoid meditating while the mime group downstairs is doing their thing. And it's a crapshoot. I don't know when they're doing it. If we do the meditation now, it's kind of quiet now. We could give it a try. Or we could try to do it afterwards. I do like to start with a meditation though. And then we'll break out we'll do a quick review of last week's class. Did anyone look at last week's class online at all or study it yourselves? Okay. You studied it. Anyone else? No?
I listened to it online like a couple months ago, but like Geshe Michael's teaching of it, so I don't know how much is still in my...
I'm just wondering if you'll be able to do the homeworks. If you haven't. Did anyone do the reading? It wasn't in the class? It's just going to be hard to do the homeworks.
Kind of diving in the middle of something here, I think I thought this was the first. On the website it said this was the first class.
Oh,
So
interesting. It's the first course.
First course.
We're at class 6.
Okay.
Out of 10.
Okay.
So sorry, Ben.
Right in the middle. Okay.
So you didn't do your homework?
No, I didn't.
You didn't know you had it.
No, I did not.
Maybe we could, yeah, it says ACI 1. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the confusing. So it's a series of 10 classes.
Yeah.
And then we do an 11th class, which is a review. And there's a total of 18 of these.
Oh, wow.
So this is ACI 1, but ACI 1 is composed of 10 units,
10
10 classes. Each class is about an hour and a half long. So we call them courses. So this is course 1, class 6. Now, having said all that, it doesn't matter. You should definitely still stay.
Yeah.
It's easy to catch up on the previous material. Course 1 is good for you in that regard. It's a very high level overview of a lot of concepts too.
Mm-hmm.
We're not drilling down into anything too much. I think you can easily catch up doing the readings and stuff on your own. I mean, everything's videotaped now. If you wanted to go back and actually, they're available on YouTube. Stephen here can give you the address.
Okay, great.
If you wanted to go back and revisit the first 5 classes too.
Sure.
So see how you feel. Any other questions now that we're in the middle?
So this is all Vajrayana concepts and teachings that you're doing here?
It will all be sutra. So it'll be Sutrayana. And we were not going to teach any Vajrayana tonight. So the ACI courses are all Sutrayana. Okay. There's no tantric course or class material taught at all on those 18 courses that I was telling you about. So the idea behind the 18 courses, it's really 15 courses plus 3 review, is they sum up 5 great books that are taught in the monastery, in a Tibetan monastery. So they were translated from Tibetan and put into an English format for us so that we could actually study them. So it's trying to simulate a monastic education without being in a monastery. It's the textbooks and academic aspect of it. Each of the homeworks has a meditation and a kind of a memorization. Eventually there's going to be debate requirements. So trying to incorporate a few different elements that you would get in a monastery.
And having said that, in regards to Vajrayana, is they say you can't get Vajrayana at all unless you understand the three paths that are presented here. So that's the groundwork for it.
Were you expecting a Vajrayana course?
No, not necessarily. I'm fairly new to this, and most of my experience has been in Southeast Asia, in Theravada temples.
Great.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
That's great.
Back in New York and wanted to continue my practice.
Great.
Welcome back.
Learning as much as I can.
Reassimilating.
Yeah.
Well, hang in there, but this will all be sutra.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I'm sorry?
It'll all be sutra, like in Southeast Asia. So, but it's Tibetan, which is interesting. It's different, but it all comes from India.
Yeah.
So let's give a meditation a go. We seem to be safe. So, unlike the Theravada tradition, I'm doing a guided meditation on some of the concepts that we're going to study in the class that you have to study for the next week, or do meditations on for the next week. So, once again, we haven't studied this yet. It's the 4 principles of karma. So I'm just going to do a guided meditation on some of those 4 aspects. So just get comfortable, as always. Physical comfort is an important foundation to start good meditation. Bring your mind into this room. Try to distance yourself from your busy day in the New York City life. Become aware of your body in this room. You are here now. You're not at work, you're not at home, you're not on the streets, you're not on the train. Bring your mind into this room. Become aware of the sensations in this room. The cold, your seat on the cushion, the sounds. To help us with our transition, we're going to watch the full cycle of the breath for a count of 10. So become aware of your entire breath cycle, starting with an exhalation. Feel all the sensations involved in the exhalation of the breath. You can focus on the sensations at the chest, the abdomen, shoulders, the nose. Be aware of the sensations and the breath as it pauses at the end of the exhalation and then begins to inhale. Be aware of every aspect of the inhalation and then the pause and then the exhalation again. Make sure that for a count of 10 breaths, you never lose attention on the full cycle of the breath. And if you do, that's fine. Just bring yourself back and your mind back. Bring your attention back to the breath. Rejoice in bringing it back. Be happy about it. And do it again. So now we're going to think about karma. There are 4 principles of action. always relate to karma. For this meditation, I want us to think about the physical seeds that we are aware of in our world, our natural world that we accept all around us. And later we'll apply this analysis to our mental seeds. But first I want to reinforce our cultural and natural beliefs in these 4 principles using physical seeds. The first principle of karma is that it is definite. In other words, a result is similar to its cause. Analyze in your mind if this is so. When you plant any seed in the ground, you know what to expect, right? You plant corn as a seed because you want corn as a result of that seed. Like begets like. It's not random. It's perfectly natural to expect to have an apple from an apple seed, an oak tree from an acorn, a human from their seeds. Results come from similar causes. Think about it. The second thing about seeds is that their results are always larger and much more complex than the original seed. Think of us as a human coming from such small seeds. It took many years, decades, to think how much more of a complex and a larger being we are than where we started from. Think of any tree that starts out like a small seed in your hand. It becomes massive, 30, 40, 100 feet tall. This is the nature of seeds. They grow. And the results are always bigger than the original seed. Think about this now. Another truth about seeds is that if you don't plant the seed, you won't get the results. And this also eliminates any kind of notion of randomness, that things could occur without a seed, They don't. Every result in our world comes from a previous seed. Everything is caused. Most importantly, if you want those results, you have to plant those seeds. Things don't just happen or appear on their own. And lastly, all seeds have a certain energy that must be fulfilled. When the conditions are right, every seed will ripen. And it will continue to live until that energy is completely exhausted. Whether it's a tree until it dies, or a human until it dies, the seed produces some inevitable growth and a projection of growth through its entire life until that energy is gone. And it's the natural way of things. Now go back to your breath and becoming aware of the sensation of your breath. Bring your attention to that object again. Focus on it for a few breaths. Try to hold these truths about seeds in your heart. Set an intention to see it in your world as you go around all day long, all night long, every day. It's these same four principles carrying out their natural law. All you have to do is become aware of it. So set an intention for this awareness, to look for these four laws of karma in your whole life. It governs everything we do. Everything we've done and everything that's about to come. Then we can slowly open our eyes, come back into the room. So obviously that's the topic, one of our topics for tonight's class. So we're going to go into a lot more detail on those 4 principles of karma. That was just the beginning. So we can do a brief review of last week, and then we'll do a breakout. You guys can do your homeworks and quizzes a little bit. You can help with that. So last week and this week, we're still on, the main topic is renunciation, right? We're still on the first of the 3 principal paths. We spent the first 4 classes trying to just describe the 3 principal paths and showing how important they were for our own practice, our own realizations, our own success as Dharma practitioners and as students, and how important they were for everything up to Sutra, all the way up through Tantra. They're truly a foundation. They're a perfect foundation for this entire set of 18 courses. So 2 classes on renunciation, which for me personally was really beautiful to review and ask myself where I was in my renunciation and my practice and what it meant for me after all these years as a student. So I really enjoyed revisiting this material. So I thank you for allowing me that opportunity. One of the things that we talked a lot about was the cycle of suffering that we're in, right? And renunciation really being defined as the desire night and day to remove ourselves from this cycle of suffering. So what does it mean when we say cycle of suffering? Anyone have an idea of what we're referring to?
Samsara.
Samsara, right. Do you know what the Tibetan for that is? Korwa. K-O-R-W-A is the Tibetan for a lot of, it's a wheel. In this context though, it means the cycle of suffering, the wheel of existence, wheel of dependent origination. And it's having to take on again and again, being forced to take on and again, the impure heaps that we have to in samsara. And true renunciation is the desire to be free of that forced cycling of rebirths. Everything in samsara causes pain. And we want to be free of that. We're sick and tired of it. We've meditated ourselves on the impermanence of things. We've meditated on how everything ends in suffering. We've meditated on, we're going to go over more sufferings today of the human life. Even I think we also talked about how the pleasure beings in the desire realm, even they end up suffering, and that's not enough of a goal for us. We need to actually aspire to be out of the cycle of suffering altogether, which means getting out of the cycle of ignorance. And in Sanskrit, that's korwa. So that's one of the things that's on our quiz. Hint, hint.
Wait, I'm sorry. Korwa is Tibetan or Sanskrit?
Tibetan.
Oh, okay.
Did I say Sanskrit?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. It's definitely Tibetan.
Okay.
Sanskrit sometimes would be chakra. But chakra has a lot of different, depends how you use it, where you use it, how you translate it.
Right.
But it also means wheel in that sense. So there were 8 worldly thoughts that we talked about that as a renunciate are, they said we must avoid them like the plague. And they basically just reference the great impermanence of everything. We want to go over what those 4 are? Do you remember? The 4, then they're opposites.
It's like being happy when you're happy,
Mm-hmm.
and then like being sad when you're sad,
Or when you're not
when
happy.
when you're not happy.
Yeah.
I guess being liked, is that one of them?
Mm-hmm.
When other people like you, and being sad when they don't like you.
Yeah, being happy when you're well known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and unhappy when you're not well known.
Mm-hmm. And then I forget the other 2 pairs.
Being happy when you get something,
Mm.
and then unhappy when you don't have things.
Mm.
Basically things, craving after things you want, and then if you don't get them, being unhappy about it.
Mm.
The other is being happy when someone speaks well of us, like praising us and then being happy when we get criticized and people don't praise us. These are 4 common things that we all go through, and we go up and down, up and down, up and down all day long on these things. And if you watch your mind throughout the day, you will see how you react to praise and criticism, or getting what you want and not getting what you want. Whether it's a small thing like getting on the train or not getting on the train, or getting what you want for lunch, or on a bigger scale getting what you want. It's always there. It's the same craving, and then the aversion to it if you don't have it. It's a terrible cycle. It just means that you are caught in this cycle of suffering. And as a renunciate, you have to not react to these types of things. Whether you get something or not, whether someone praises you or not, you should be like this. Not going up and down as a result of it. You should try to stop the aversion and craving of these things by understanding their impermanent nature. Understanding that by responding to them in a way of being happy when you've finally gotten something you were craving for is only going to perpetuate those same seeds again, here again, in a cycle of suffering. All it does is perpetuate it even longer. So you're not doing anything towards your goal of breaking out of samsara by responding to them. You're not using correct worldview of wisdom, of karma and emptiness to break that cycle out if you just keep reacting to everything. Okay? And that's why it's important. Because if you're just reacting to everything, you're on a train back into samsara. You're nowhere working your way out. And if you truly do have renunciation and truly do want to get out of renunciation, these are great ways to practice. Watch your mind throughout the day. These are mental afflictions, and the Yoga Sutras have a great reaction and great solution for them. In the first chapter, like the verse 29 through 30 or 31, they list all the mental afflictions that you have, or not all of them, but the main ones. And then they say the best antidote is mindfulness, awareness. And that awareness throughout the day of everything going on in your mind, you will see all of this. And when you see all of this, you won't. If you're mindful about it, you won't react to it. And that's why mindfulness is the perfect antidote, because you see it and you won't react to it. Most often, our minds are just on automatic and reacting automatically throughout the day. And that mindfulness, staying in the present moment, as long as you can, as often as you can, you will see all of this arise, and then you will catch yourself, and you apply wisdom to it, and you don't react. And that's the breaking of the karmic cycle. That's the breaking of the seed being replanted again and again. That cutting at the root right there with wisdom is what breaks that cycle from happening again. And eventually, because everything is coming around from our past deeds in that cycle as well, eventually you break them all and you're broken out of samsara. It's not really a breaking out, it's a metaphorical breaking out. Basically what happens is you've eliminated your mental affliction obstacles. But you don't go to another place. Samsara is not over there, right? And then nirvana's over here, right? It's not like that. We talked about that. What else did we go over in class 5 for your homeworks? One of the other meditations we did for renunciation, just to reiterate, there are 2 of them. We did do a meditation on the fortunes of our leisure and fortune right now, and what that means. I've got a handout from last week too that'll help with that. And then our impermanence, which we definitely did. So we did a discussion of the 8 ways of lacking opportunity. I'll pull it out at the break. And we meditated on these as a way of gaining renunciation as well. Tell you what, why don't we do that now? Otherwise, you guys won't know what I'm talking about. I don't want to reteach the whole thing again, because I actually like to focus on the new material. But we do want to do a little bit of a review. All right, so we can pass these around if you can get them. I do this if I get a lot of material that I don't want to write down on the board.
I have a question while these are
It's
going
just too
around.
much.
And I think I know the answer, but I just want to know what you will say. So, how can we rejoice while also avoiding the 8 worldly thoughts?
How do you rejoice while doing it?
Yeah. Like feeling happy when good things happen seems to be like rejoicing minus like reflecting on emptiness. Or like, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm asking? Like, how do you rejoice properly
without
instead of being just level?
Right.
And without falling into that of being happy about things
Right.
that happen. Yeah, I think it's a difference. Rejoicing, for me personally, I don't rejoice in my own things. I rejoice in other people's things. So I can be happy if you get something you want, and I can rejoice in that. But it's not my craving. It's not satisfying my craving. It satisfies my wish that you get what you want because I want you to be happy. Okay, and I want good things to happen to you.
But what if she doesn't get that, and then you don't get what your wish, which is for her to be happy?
Yeah, but I'm not sad for that either. Rejoicing for me means it's much more looking at the virtue that is happening, and rejoicing implies some wisdom. You're rejoicing on how it's coming out about through wisdom. That's at least for me. If you apply that to being happy, like it's nice, you know. The other thing I think I mentioned is you can't help it but things happen to you. If someone says something nice to you, you can't stop that karma from ripening.
Right.
It was already planted because of the praise you made for someone else in your past. And you can just see it coming out as, oh, that's just a karmic ripening.
I mean, I was asking myself that question, and I was saying, okay, these 8 worldly thoughts are very ego-based, and so what if we go outside and it's a beautiful day, and it's warm and it's sunny?
Yeah.
So can we think, this is good? And I can rejoice in that. And that because I'm not happy because I've acquired something or I'm just happy because the sun is shining.
Yeah.
So that's allowed, right?
Yeah.
Well, not if you're attached to it,
But
right?
you know, but are you attached to it like so much so that if it wasn't really sunny, you'd be really sad?
I mean,
You know,
it's possible.
In that way, you just have to check your head and say,
Right.
am I being happy because I'm satisfying a craving, or am I rejoicing just because it's it's a beautiful day? You know, you ask yourself, if it wasn't such a beautiful day and if it was 33 degrees and raining, how would I be really sad? Or could I still say it's a beautiful day? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the thing that comes to me is thinking about, and I'm not quite sure it addresses what you're asking, but it's the emptiness of the thing, and it's something that's the last part that we'll get to is where did the thing come from? And I think maybe you were suggesting that when you said about emptiness, and that, well, I'm happy about something. It's not a bad thing, but where did it come from? It came from because like Michael was saying about karma, it could only come because you did something similar to that, and so it's coming from something you did to experience a beautiful day. And the same thing with something that you don't like. Why am I getting this? Why am I experiencing something that's making me unhappy? It's because of something that I did similar to that. So I think of it in those terms. just to get away from the idea of like, oh, I'm not supposed to be happy or sad about anything. I mean, I am happy or sad about things, but why is...
So it's a little bit, it sounds like, that helps me, and it sounds like the worldly thoughts are a little bit more about attribution, like it's coming from out there, whereas if you recognize that it's actually coming from you, it doesn't count as a worldly thought.
Well, that wisdom that it's coming from you helps cut that ignorance that it's coming from out there.
Okay, so even if you recognize, like, I created this karma to experience this beautiful day, if you still have the attachment, it's still a worldly thought. Or I created the karma to have this beautiful relationship, but I'm attached to it.
Well, what does
thought.
attachment mean when you say that?
Well, I would be sad if it ended.
Oh.
Right, understand though that that's the nature of samsaric beings, and that is the definition of samsara, that there is suffering and that there is attachment and craving and there is aversion to things. So that's our nature too, and it's not, we can't deny that that's the way we are, that's our world. And you can't just say, well, I'm never going to be sad if my partner leaves, because that's absurd.
Right.
That's not the point. It's the wisdom to know that it's coming from you, and it's from things you've done in the past, and it's because things are empty that they're happening that way. And that wisdom can change all of that eventually. But absolutely, just to be clear, I mean, these are not saying you shouldn't be happy and you shouldn't be sad. You are, and you will be, and you should be happy, and you should rejoice. Absolutely. You know, that's a good one for you to think about and to find where you are with something like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing too is as the course goes on, we talk, you know, the last part of this is about correct view, which is about emptiness, and we go into that a lot, and how it connects to karma as well, because they're intimately connected. They're so connected, that idea of correct view, that things don't have any nature from their own side, and the karma that what we do brings us, you know, just those four attributes that Michael is talking about, it brings us the same thing. But that's paired with the correct view that comes later. So we'll go into that more later, and I think that becomes more clear than...
Yeah, we're still we haven't gone through all the paths yet.
The beauty about the first course, I think, is that when we learned it, Geshe would say, it's coming in the course to come. You know, when you start getting to course 9, it's like you're running out of courses.
Okay, so let's just take 10 minutes quickly and try and do the homeworks and quizzes if you're up to it. I've got them printed out here. So the idea here that we found effective is that when you collaborate, like, you know, work in groups, that you talk about these ideas and you ask your own questions and you work with each other to come up with the answers. That type of exercise helps you learn a lot. So here's a homework and a quiz. Just to, I guess for Ben and for anyone else, just a reminder, the homework's a totally open book, you know. And then the quizzes are simply a few questions that were also on the homeworks, and they're a distillation to, and you can try to do those without a book. The whole idea on these is really just to reinforce a few points to takeaways from the whole class. So, you want to break up into some groups at all? Oh, I don't know, I just kind of look around and see if they can help.
I don't.
Oh, I don't need the homework.
Oh,
Do you want homework?
Are you out of?
Are we out of quizzes?
Yeah.
Okay.
You
don't
can double
mind?
up, put two names on one or something.
Okay.
What's your last name?
I suppose we have this summary sheet from the other classes, do you?
They're unique to each class. I didn't make one for the other classes.
Oh, I see.
That was so much material on that, I didn't want to write it on the whiteboard
Right.
during class. It would have been
Okay.
taking too long. Let me see, I don't think I handed out another one for any of the other classes.
Should we do it all together?
Okay, it can be one big group. Please, I need to.
yeah,
Wait,
that's
is
great.
this the reading
Uh-huh.
homework or the
And
quiz?
then they have as a reference.
Yeah, right.
And it's all in there.
Yeah,
Most of it
right,
from
and you just broke it out.
So the first one's
Yeah.
define what is meant by
Yeah, yeah.
cycle of life or
so-
samsara in Sanskrit.
I do, yeah, that's one.
Yeah,
And
well, I
that's the,
noticed the book is online too,
That's what we're
right?
supposed to do.
Yeah, the
that's
whole
pretty
reading,
cool.
they've
Yeah,
been
so
taken
that's-
out of here and you put into an
And then
ignorant
it's like
place.
Yeah.
but cycle
So the pages are different,
Right.
but the text is all
that
Right.
and
And you put the
reading.
notes at the end of each reading.
Or
Yeah.
Each
more
class.
fun and one life.
Mm-hmm.
Cycle of ignorance. Of wanting and not wanting.
Yeah, you'll find your
Yeah,
own
I think
balance.
I had done that.
Is that the original binder?
Yeah, and
It
I
almost
had,
feels like that's
I always do
the
that.
eight
Oh,
more
over here, and Geshe
things
was,
that.
They're very,
Geshe
they're
looked
usually
great
very
at
specific
everything.
with the answers.
Yeah,
on
great.
these, so,
Yeah.
I mean, he would even
I
tell
don't
you
think
when
they're
you
not
had
fussed
a,
around exactly.
I mean, this is all his writing.
Fantastic.
He used to, he would even say when you made a spelling
I mean,
mistake,
just said it, I
you
don't
know?
know exactly.
So he would,
He talked about the like of it
oh,
being
yeah,
the wheel of
please give
dependent
time.
origination.
Mhm.
you know?
That's
So,
kind of cool.
like he made it lowercase and he told me it should be uppercase.
Yeah, but it's also like where
It's great. He's still
dependent
got it. He's 20 years
origination,
old.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
emptiness seems
But I started doing that
consistently
with the
present.
text, I think.
And then
Oh,
once
yeah.
you can see
Yeah, what you did here.
emptiness, you're out of it. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's a
writing
bad
it out.
idea.
Right.
That was just like a cool thing to think about.
Yeah.
So
The final was meant by cycle of
Because
life.
it's
I
just
think it would
using
just
the
be
book.
like a cycle of suffering.
So
That's great.
yeah, like
I
the
know,
cyclic
I know.
nature.
it's totally.
Is there an extra pen
Sure.
floating around by chance?
If you have any questions, let us know.
Light of what?
The nature of suffering
Of
and
life, death,
yeah, so
and rebirth,
sounds
which
simple.
includes. Oh, should we talk about this? Wait, the snake, the rooster, and the.
That's what I was
pig?
saying. The wanting, not wanting.
I forget what they stand for again.
The pig is ignorance.
Ignorant,
The snake is,
desire.
and the chicken is. No, the
Pride.
chicken is desire. And the
What?
snake is
Aversion.
aversion.
Oh.
So what? Don't you guys worry about that?
And which
I mean, I
is
guess you could put.
maintained by.
You could put. No, what are you putting about that?
I'm just saying, like, it's maintained by or like created by ignorance.
Yeah, that's good.
So ignorance.
So like we're stuck in a
Semicolon,
cycle of suffering because of ignorance. And
Yeah.
Wrong view.
Ignorance. Okay. Including.
Also think about how, do you have a choice or not?
I always argue about that, and then Hector always says, "Wait for the karma class."
No, I don't
You're
mean
gonna
free
say,
will
"Wait for the
choice.
karma class."
I meant, do you have any say in whether you're reborn in samsara or not?
What, isn't that the kind of
Yeah.
end game of all this though, is to break that and,
Yes,
and
but it's not choice. I mean, it's karma ripening, which that is nirvana. Like that's the.
right.
It's not like at midnight I'm going to go do it. It's just when it ripens. So the idea on this in this question is that you're forced to. When you're, we haven't really talked about past lives and future lives, but assuming that we're talking about that when we talk about the cycle of life, that when you're being born in samsara, that mind stream, doesn't really have a choice. It's forced to be born in samsara because of your impure heaps. And we've got this leisure and fortune in our human life now to purify those heaps so that we can work to avoid that rebirth again.
I don't remember, what's the name for the moment that cycle is finally broken? Is it, I know it's different than nirvana, but there's a name, I think, for when samsara is broken.
Mm-hmm. There must be. I'm not familiar with anything.
Maybe not. Okay, hallucinated that.
No.
Direct perception of emptiness?
No. That's not breaking the cycle of suffering.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But that's like an enlightened being is one who breaks that cycle, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Any being who enters through is nirvana, so an arhat. And you could say an arhat isn't a fully enlightened being. So you don't have to reach total enlightenment in order to leave samsara.
You don't have to reach full enlightenment to leave samsara.
You can just reach what's called a lower enlightenment or nirvana. There's small details. But that's not the point. The point is that eventually we're working towards it, and you're going the right way. Whether you're a lower or greater enlightenment, you're going the right way.
I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah. And then the next one is you can open book, you can use the handout on the homework.
So I'm just copying the list.
Yeah. It's all about repetition.
Does anyone know it without looking?
No.
I don't.
Happy when unhappy. Happy when happy.
Happy when well known, happy when you get something, happy when you are
Oh, you're doing a
praised.
quiz. I see.
Huh?
And then
What was the last one? Happy when what?
I wrote down in my notes just now happy when you're praised. I'm a little unclear on the distinction between like being well known and being praised.
Mm-hmm.
Being infamous.
Yeah. Being famous
Okay.
versus someone's saying nice things to you.
Okay.
That one is confusing.
Close.
Yeah,
They
it's
just
like
seem so close.
Needing
Yeah.
praise, needing like praise and approval versus needing to be known or influential.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Because I guess you
Yeah.
could
They're
be like
different.
famous without being praised.
Like,
And yeah. Okay.
all reality TV.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good
like a
one.
perfect example.
Uh-huh.
Alright.
This is a great little list. Now that I work at the cafe, and it's like in the business district, in Midtown,
I didn't know you worked in a cafe.
with Nick.
Oh, the Australian one?
Uh-huh.
Do you do fake accents too?
No, I'm not Nick.
It's nice to
But
know.
like
See, you used to
almost
do
all of
some
our
coffee,
coworkers
right?
are starting.
You
But
used to do some kind of
every
sure.
Monday,
okay.
every store complains about it being Monday, and every day someone has a comment about the weather, and like whether it's good or bad, And they're,
I think
it's
it's
so
so
nice
on the right side.
to see that. People are then like, well, how are you? And I'm like, well, I don't give Monday like any special powers. Like it's, but people are so caught up in like Monday's bad, Friday's good, and it's really disturbing.
It's interesting.
I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like no matter what the weather's doing,
Like,
like it has to be judged in some way. I don't know if it's just
It's
because
like
our
another world. It's
conversation's
like
superficial,
Manjushu's
but
paradise.
it's so
Yeah.
apparent, like now.
So I saw some Instagram post which is totally tell them that. It's like, it's not Monday, dude. It's your life that you hate. It's not cute, but yeah, it's not like it's not Monday's fault.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, take a couple minutes more.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
That's
I wouldn't say that.
You should say
I'm not
that.
gonna say it.
It's not
No, I would
nice.
never. No, I would never.
But it's not Monday's fault. You can say maybe or something.
Or you could like refocus them on something completely random. I like when people do that to me. Steve, you do that a lot.
Well, yeah.
Even if it's violent sometimes. Like,
Stop punching me in the face.
stop like licking my hand. Tripping me, kicking me in the shin. You're abusive. It's okay. It's okay, because we're in samsara.
Did everyone get their list?
They're almost finished.
I'm sure I have my own version of Monday, you know, in my life. Something that but it's just so, I guess what I'm doing now, it's so apparent. Like every single customer, every Monday is like.
You're also getting people pre-caffeine. So whoever gets them like 10 minutes after you get them is probably getting a completely different human.
Alright, let's maybe just get started on class 6.
Do you want us to hand these in to you?
Sure.
Steve, give me a mic. And Tasha's.
Behind you.
Today's the
Tasha and I have the
23rd.
same. Oh, are you guys handing
Yes.
in homework too?
Oh. No, I'm not.
Here you go.
Oh, okay. I was planning on handing them in as a packet at the end. Is
Sure.
that okay?
I'll definitely grade them.
Cool.
Yep. I tell you, I think one of the most important aspects of the homeworks is the meditation assignment. try and keep that up. And it requests at least one entry, but you really need to meditate every day if this stuff is going to come into you. So give it a try. If you can, even 15 minutes a day, make that commitment to do the analytical meditation on renunciation or karma or whatever. And if you can do more, great. But try to do at least that. Because that's where it's going to really help to sink in.
So, real quick, what's the book that is being referred to?
We're talking about this book here. I can pass it to him. It's called The Three Principal Paths. It's our source material. It was originally a teaching by Tsongkhapa, and then it was written in 14 verses, and those are in there. But the main material is the commentary by a 20th century Tibetan named Pavonko Rinpoche. And back in the 90s or late 80s, that text of Pavonko Rinpoche's was translated and put into this book. And it's a long rim, and it's a kind of a unique teaching of Tibetan traditions, which are steps on the path. And these 14 verses, in very brief summary, detail the entire path to Buddhahood. And that's what long rim means, and that's what a long rim text is. And that would be considered the very, very, very brief long rim. They have very long ones that are 1,000 pages. But that's a distillation of the entire Buddhist path right there. And then the commentary on it.
So is it like his interpretations of the actual sutras? Or like a distillation of, or like a commentary?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. It's Tsongkhapa's basically distillation of the sutras from Lord Buddha, of what Lord Buddha said was the path.
And it's, in my own study, it's been based on Pali Canon, which I think is a little different than this. This is, what's the name in the Tibetan tradition for the equivalent like body of knowledge, I guess.
Right. Well, it depends where the text comes from, like what body material it's actually covering. In terms of most of the Pali Canon was written at the time or right after Lord Buddha passed, right? It's pretty early on.
Yes.
So, and most of it's written in Pali. Most of these texts were originally Sanskrit texts that were carried over to Tibet from India. So I don't know of too many Pali texts which made it to Tibet.
Right.
So there was a translation somewhere, either they were originally transcribed in Sanskrit or went from Pali to Sanskrit.
Okay. Probably many of the same teachings, I would imagine.
Yeah, they basically, the Mahayana tradition covers what's called the second wheel of teachings of Lord Buddha. And that's mostly where these texts come from, which are mostly the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras and a certain period of time when Lord Buddha taught. So that's what those are the texts that mostly were translated or actually carried into Tibet and translated there. Some of them are obviously translated in India. There was a huge effort to translate the text and bring them into Tibet. Some were translated in India and brought over. Some were translated in Tibet. Some are still being translated now. So it's obviously a huge effort. So that book's available for sale, or it's also free as part of the course material online as a PDF.
Okay.
We can give you the link for that. So tonight we're going to talk about initially the 4 principles of karma. We're going to talk to them directly, not as physical seeds, but as mental seeds, because that's what karma is. The Tibetan word for karma is spelled L-E. It means lay. It's pronounced lay. And you'll come across it a lot. That's why I wanted to give it to you as a Tibetan word. Anything with the word lay in it means is it talking about karma. And it's in a lot of what you've got over here written. Mm-hmm. So when you see it on the whiteboard, when Vilma's teaching, that lay is karma, L-E. Karma, let's start with the definition of karma, which you probably already had. Anyone want to venture?
Movement of the mind. And it's, that part. Movement of the mind and its results, or like its...
Right, and what it motivates.
And what it motivates, yeah.
Right, so it's very important to break that down, because they're really saying karma is a movement of the mind. Karma is mental, right? And then they're saying and what it motivates. And what does it motivate? It motivates 2 other aspects of our expression, which are body and speech. So in there you cover your 3 doors of expression. Expressing through mind, body, speech, and mind. Mind is always first, and that's why karma is said to exist as a mental factor first. Everything you do physically and everything you say originates as a mental thought first. And you may not notice it now, but when you sit in deep meditation, you will see your mind. And you will see the mental patterns and the mental thoughts first, and then you'll see a reaction to it. You'll see a physical thing, and then you can even see where it's coming out afterwards. So when you have mindfulness and you have a certain stillness, you can see your mind moving first. And that's why they say karma is a movement of the mind and what it motivates. So that implies all 3 of our actions and our doors of expression of body, speech, and mind. Karma also can be translated as an energy, and then that energy, how it's going to affect you later. So it can imply a result, a causality. And with anything from Sanskrit, there are many translations for something. It's the context that matters on how you translate it. One of the ways of translating karma is as a result based on previous causes. So the first principle of karma that we talked about was that it is definite in that it will always produce a result which is similar to its cause. Okay. like begets like. Karma, and this whole metaphor of seeds, which we did in the meditation, is not unique to Buddhism. They're laws of causality. Jesus talked a lot about seeds in his teachings in Christianity, pre-Christianity. He also used metaphors like you reap what you sow. And like if you sow corn seeds, you're going to reap corn seeds. It's the same kind of thing. In the physical world, we accept all that. On the mental thing, it's the exact same thing. Whatever occurs in the movement of the mind that occurs, you will get those results too. Okay? There is no difference between physical seeds and mental seeds in that regard. So what we went over in the meditation this morning was the obvious nature of physical seeds to, I want you now to map them over to mental seeds and realize that the same principles occur. And it's just as true and just as definite, whether you're talking about physical seeds or mental seeds. So what's the definition of good karma?
Anything that's going to produce a pleasurable result and bring you to nirvana?
Right. It doesn't, yeah, I mean, I don't know about the bringing you to nirvana part, but anything that produces a desirable result.
Okay.
And what would the definition of bad karma be?
Something that produces more suffering.
Or an undesirable, right. Yep. And there's neutral karma, which doesn't produce either or. And there's a whole course on karma. There's 10 classes taught on karma. So there's 3 months of material coming on it. Tonight we're going to spend about 20 minutes. But it is coming down the pipe, as Geshe used to say. It's coming, it's coming. And we can't cover it all at once. Karma is a very subtle knowledge, knowable only to fully enlightened beings. It is more subtle than emptiness, more difficult to track back, and it is something that we simplify a lot in our lives. I hear it all over, both between in Buddhist culture and non-Buddhist culture, the use of the word karma, and it's been simplified hugely because there's no way to grasp it in our little pea brains that we have right now. And that's okay, but beware of oversimplifying, and know you're oversimplifying it when we define good karma and bad karma. There is all sorts of karma. Karma is very subtle, many levels of karma. Karma is being planted 65 times a second. Your mind is moving. Every one of those movements of your mind is not only a result of previous causes, but it's causing future results. It's massive what's going on. So be aware of oversimplification. Just know that there's a lot more detail there. So what happens in karma when, say, someone appears to get rich from robbing a bank? You just define good karma and bad karma. Is the result of somebody getting what they want, like getting rich, a result of doing something non-virtuous like stealing?
No.
Why not? It looks like it. They robbed a bank and then they got rich. So where is it coming from?
Well, the enjoyment of money that would lead someone to believe that they're rich is the ripening of a previous karma where they helped someone become or have that feeling. Because like must produce like. And it only appears that robbing the bank produced the richness because we don't understand how karma works.
And what's gonna result from that action of robbing the bank?
Someone probably stealing something from you. But the result has to be similar, but will be heightened, so it's 10 times worse.
Or more.
Right.
Yeah, so it's absolutely right. There's always a time lapse, and the karma that's you planted from stealing hasn't ripened yet if you've gotten rich. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's two different things going on, and whatever good thing that is appearing comes from a previous good that you yourself have done, and it has to be you yourself. Karma is non-transferable. like plane tickets these days. You cannot give your karma to someone else. No one can take your karma. You can't do anything like that. Your mind stream is holding all of your karma since beginningless time. Which, on an amusing side, because I like science, I read today that the Large Hadron Collider in CERN is ramping up to be twice the speed and possibly proving that there was no Big Bang and that the universe is beginningless. And that it's theoretically proven that the universe is beginningless, and the Large Hadron Collider is about to undertake an experiment to prove it. So watch out. The Big Bang may be bust. Your mind stream is beginningless too, and it's been moving since beginningless time, and all of those causes are now producing results. One is a negative result to make you want to rob a bank, and the other one is to see another result of having money afterwards.
I have a big question that might be better served at another time, but it's just about karma, and I always think about it when we talk about the rules of karma, because it's like you have karma on one hand and emptiness, and they're like two sides of the same coin, right? But emptiness is pretty much like nothing is true, and then you have like, here's the 4 rules of karma. I'm just like, why is there these specific rules? I know that they function, but like, is it specific to our realm, or like our world, or our minds? Why is it so specific? And like, is karma?
I've had that same thought.
Yeah.
My take on that is that in our conventional world, certain things are true. Like, I'm going to die, right? If I stand in front of a taxi, I'm going to get run over, or an Uber car, right? And that's just, those are the things about our world. In our conventional world, these 4 laws of karma are true, and principles of, and Geshe says any book written about anything about our world and our world, not like our physical world, but our world is our mind, that doesn't include these 4 principles isn't true, because this is the truth about our world. Just like the 4 Arya truths that Lord Buddha taught about suffering and getting out of suffering. They are true in our conventional sense. It is also true on an ultimate side of things that these truths are coming from us. And so is the emptiness of things coming from us. So if you can, to think about it, try to think about it as true to the conventional truth, and because that doesn't deny their emptiness and the ultimate side of those truths, and the emptiness side of karma.
Okay. I just get caught up on a personal. Thanks. But because sometimes I get caught up on a personal level. I'm like, sometimes almost nihilistic. But like, if I had the karma to hear these teachings and so on, and create them in a sense, am I creating my own boundaries to which I'm creating my world? Like, have I created these rules, and can they be broken if they're empty?
How can they be broken?
Like, if I've created my world in the way I perceive things, then I must have created these rules.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they do exist, and there are rules in the conventional world, in the conventional reality. Yeah.
So therefore, they can be changed.
Their ultimate nature is free of self-existence.
Right. Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay. All right, let's just go into the second principle, which is the effects of karma are always bigger. You mentioned it's 10 times?
I thought it was 10.
It actually, they said it, what did Pablo say? It multiplies, it doubles every 24 hours or something like that?
Something 24 hours.
Yeah, it grows.
Exponential.
And it goes exponentially, it doesn't stop.
Before it manifests?
Until
Or
it
it's
manifests. It's doubling. So I use the metaphor of a physical seed. Everything as small as a physical seed, right? And look, its results are always massive compared to its seed. and it just keeps going and going and going, and it grows and it multiplies. So it's a little bit daunting to think about it doubling every 65 seeds a second, doubling every 24 hours, unless purified or ripened until they're ripened. It's really daunting, but don't think about that. Just know that they do, and know that it's a principle that things increase, and that's just the natural order of things in our conventional reality, and that your karma won't just go away. Robbing the bank in that silly metaphor will not just evaporate. In fact, it's going to increase. Right? It's going to grow worse. It's going to be even more powerful in a negative way. And the positive side is every virtue gets done, it doubles every 24 hours too. So your virtue increases a huge amount, and that's a beautiful thing.
So they're both increasing at the same rate. Then.
Yeah, it's karma principle. It's not like, they're different depending on the karmic seed. Seeds are seeds. They have the same principles. Okay. And we just draw a metaphor for the physical seeds because I want you to do the same thing with these mental seeds. Know that they are growing just like those acorns are. And as a complex being, look how complex we've become based on our little seed and egg from our original conception, right? It's like amazing, a complexity. So imagine the karma of being angry at somebody, and then how complex that could become into maybe, a lifetime of somebody, a partner being angry at you for like decades. Because it could be that. And the idea is simply that for you to watch your minds and be aware of what you're planning. You have to know this in order to avoid it, right? You have to know that, that's why we are trying to be moral beings. And this is why we're trying to watch our minds. Because of how they affect us and how the negative impact they can have with our goal of trying to get out of the cycle of suffering, getting out of samsara. You have to know this about karma in order to not do it. The third karma principle is that if you did not plant the seeds, then you cannot get the results. And we said that karma is non-transferable. So, in the other sense, really for me, it's don't expect results if you didn't do the deed. Some of us do. We sit around and we do things and expect the world to happen for us. But if you haven't done the seeds that are causes for the results, don't expect the results. So it's a little call for us that things aren't just going to pop out of nowhere and happen. If you want the results of getting out of samsara, you've got to work and do the work to get out of samsara. Or it's not just going to happen, And that's why the Lamrim steps of the path are a way for you to know how to get out of samsara. And if you do those, and as a distillation, if you focus on these three principal paths perfectly, then it will work, But it's because you've done those and you didn't just wait for it to happen to you. Don't wait for a wand to come down and be waved over your head and, there you are in nirvana. You're entirely responsible for everything in your world, in your mind stream. So it's time to take responsibility for it now, and in a great way, planting the right positive seeds for you to reach your goal.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a silly question, but so say I'm aware that I have a bad thought. Say my brother is annoying, and I'm like, man, I hate that my brother is so annoying. And then I'm like, I catch myself. So then I should just think a positive thought instead of that. I mean, is there something very specific that I should do at that point?
Well, there's a few things you can do at that point. If you have the mindfulness to know it, the first thing you can do is have that and become aware of it, and then regret it, and regret it with the wisdom that you don't want the results, knowing the laws of karma. Do an antidote for us. Maybe say, and even in your own mind, you could say, oh, he's not that bad. He gave me a good Christmas gift. And then say, I try not to get angry at him for the rest of the day. I'm not sure I have another negative thought for the end of the day. And that can mitigate the power of that karma. So there's 4 principles there. And if you try to run through them with every time you have something like that, you can work to mitigate some of that power of the energy of that karmic seed. Yeah. And the time gap is a big problem too, because Nagarjuna says that if everyone could feel the result of karma right away, like if everyone, when they stepped on a cockroach, could feel their own ribs break, like they wouldn't do it, you know? If every time someone told a lie to get something, that something was missing from them, they wouldn't do it. Like we have this wisdom because we know about karma now, because we're learning it. But if you don't, you're just trapped, and you just keep in this cycle of doing things again, thinking that things come from different causes, that you can get rich from stealing. But and that's the problem. We have to break that. We have to know that that's not how things are. Geshe-la says it should be the fifth principle, is that there's always a time gap, because it's like a truth, you know. Some karma can ripen quicker, like in this life, and we work on those and we try to empower those kinds of virtues. But it's not as immediate, like as if you stole something and then money came out of your wallet right away.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it would be nice. Okay, the fourth principle of karma is that if you did not commit the karma, if you commit the karma, it must ripen. It will have a result. And I kind of I fashion this by saying that there's an energy to all karmic seeds. All seeds have an energy, and when they're in the right environment, they ripen. You don't need to do anything. You know, genetic material just goes, it runs its course, right? It's not like you have to put gas in the genetic engine of that seed, that car to go. If anything, that gas is just like, for a corn seed might be just water and a soil, and it just goes. You don't have to do anything. And seeds will do that. They will go and go until their energy is expired, which for us might mean that our life is ended. To see our bodies as humans. But anger changes. Like the seed to have that thought of anger to brother changed. It ran out. The energy for it ran out. But it had to come out initially because of a previous thought you've done at some point in the past. And then that was expired. And it is gone. And it's no more. It is no more. Someone says that to know your past lives, all you have to do is look at your present. Whatever's ripening for you now, you did in the past. You can reverse chronologically know what you did in the past by what's ripening for you in the now. If I've got something happening, like, you know, something bad, like I get fired from a job, it's because I've done something like that for someone. If someone steals from me, it's because I stole. I know that's my past. What did I do in my past lives? I must have stolen. Because that's what's ripening now. It's the only way it could be here in my present. It's a result of a previous action. It's not all you did, but it's certainly one of the things you did in your past lives. You're all here studying Dharma and listening to Dharma because you yourselves have taught Dharma in the past. Think about that. You've had some connection with the Dharma. Maybe you were a translator. Maybe you were a Pali scholar. Maybe you were there. Maybe you did something. But that's why you're exposed to Dharma now. On the positive side.
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to waste time, but
No, nothing's wasted. Your questions are fine.
I wonder, like, I don't know, I understand what you reap, what you sow.
Mm-hmm.
This I can get, but this idea of like times 500 times the karma will come back to you. And more than, I just think, how did the Buddha know? Like, how did he come up with this mathematical equation? And maybe that's not a useful question, but
Oh, it is. So one of the definitions of an omniscient being, or one of the definitions or qualities of an enlightened being, is that they're fully omniscient, right? And that's the difference. We were talking about nirvana as a lower enlightenment and complete enlightenment. The difference, they say, is that a fully enlightened being has total omniscience, complete omniscience, in that they understand all things in all three times at once, and they also understand the two realities at the same time. They understand conventional reality and ultimate reality at the same time. And only a fully enlightened being can have that awareness of all karmic actions. So somebody cannot either. So he was fully enlightened, so he can teach karma, and he can talk about it and say, these are the principles of karma. This is what happens. This is how it grows.
And then this is my next question: is how important is it for us to believe that the Buddha was a fully enlightened being? Because I can believe that, like, it's nice to treat people well. That I can get. And then, do I have to believe that the Buddha was totally enlightened or totally omniscient? I'm happy to, but I just don't know.
It's not a prerequisite. No. And it'll change, and over time. I mean, how do you ever know? You know.
Because I think in Christianity, I think you might have to think.
You do. That's the whole.
Jesus was
Yeah, that's
like
the core of the religion.
Yeah. It will help. One remember that you said one of the qualities of a teaching is it comes from the Buddha, and it's assuming that there's some truth to the fact that he was fully enlightened and he knew the path, he traveled the path, therefore could teach the path. You might ask, look at the teachings of Lord Buddha, like the Four Truths, and say, is there truth there? If you keep going and reviewing his teachings and sutras and say he got everything right, he does perfectly describe our world, then you're building up some faith and chinking away the doubts, but should not have blind faith and take it blindly that he was enlightened and therefore everything he said was true. Definitely chew it over and debate it.
On that note, and this will lead into a question, but on that note, the Buddha wasn't enlightened from his own side, so we perceive him as enlightened. So you're creating him in your mind. But then that just led me to a thought of, if we are capable of perceiving and interacting with an enlightened being, does that mean that we were once an enlightened being? How does that work? I mean, if we're capable of creating one, what does that imply about our previous lives? Simply that we've interacted with one?
Maybe, yeah. The virtue to being the presence of an enlightened being. I mean, in our world, say 2015, we've had one basically in our historical time frame, which is pretty close when we talk about eons of time. So he wasn't in our life, although there are people getting enlightened these days. It's not like it happened once 2,500 years ago and that was the last person to get enlightened. People are getting enlightened all the time, right? It wasn't a once-off. In recorded history, there's a few people, and he was one of them, and he taught a lot, so he was influential, but he wasn't the first or the last person to be enlightened. The karma to be in a world where that is happening is very auspicious, is very, very fortunate. Where does it come from? I don't know. I don't know the subtle workings of that karma. Right. I could only guess. But do know it's very virtuous and very fortunate. And that it's one of the leisures and fortunes of this life that we should take advantage of now.
Just add to that. I don't know the exact saying that he said, but he said, "Don't believe it just because I said it. Test it."
Right.
So even he said it himself. You don't have to believe me. Just test this.
Yeah, I kind of get that from him, or it, or whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it kind of makes me I kind of want to believe, I kind of do, but then I'm like, how do I really know?
Yeah, I think it's good.
And then, like you said, you just
That seems good
keep on
to
going.
think that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's healthy.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say about seeds. Remember I said if the environment is correct, seeds will grow. So what's the environment for mental seeds? It's easy to say physical seeds, right? What's the environment, perfect growth for our mental seeds to grow?
Just natural intellectual curiosity.
It's a natural thing.
Even if it's not natural, it's to seek knowledge, you have to have the desire to do so. Where does that come from? I'm not sure.
But even negative seeds, all of our karma is nurtured. It's the perfect environment for all of our karmic mental seeds in one thing. And that's ignorance. You were talking about it earlier. It's the pig in the middle of samsara. It is that which turns everything in our cyclic wheel of dependent origination. Ignorance is the cause of everything. If we are in samsara, then we are driven by ignorance, and that's the perfect place for our mental seeds to nurture and grow.
Whoa, wait, so the cause of all of our karmic seeds to ripen is because of ignorance?
It is the environment that helps them grow, yes. It's not the only cause.
Right, okay.
And the environmental factors for something to grow are not the only factors. But when you talk about, you can stop a seed by eliminating, I could stop that oak tree from growing by removing the acorn, right? Or if I don't water a rose seed or whatever, they have seeds, they must have seeds. It's not going to grow, right? So how does that apply to mental seeds? How do you not water your mental seeds? What's the opposite of ignorance?
Emptiness.
Wisdom.
So, yeah, wisdom.
So that's how it becomes the antidote to all of the karmic ripenings in samsara, and it helps. That's why wisdom is the ultimate key for breaking samsara. It also eliminates the environmental factors for your mental seeds to ripen this way, and to ripen again in samsara. It's very powerful. We haven't gotten to wisdom and correct view yet. It's coming. Vilma will teach you brilliantly. So I'm going to stop on the 4 laws of karma. There's a lot to go there. Stick around for course 5.
Does anyone need to take a break? Bathroom break? Okay. I wrote a little bit of the Tibetan on the board, just for the hell of it. And so don't worry about it too much. But the next part that we're doing is it's the six problems of human life, the 6 sufferings of human life. And so it's divided up. There are the 8 problems, the 6 problems, and the 3 problems. The ones that we do are the ones that we're going to go over are the 6 problems. So this is the first one here. So just if you could repeat after me. Can everyone see it here? Okay. This one is Nyepa, Mepe, Nyepa. Nepa, Mepe, Nyepa. Okay. This one here, Nepa, means certainty. That means certainty. Certainty. Mepe means there is none. So this next one is there is none. And Nyepa means problem. So the first suffering of a human life is that there is no certainty in life. That's the first problem. We don't really know what's going to happen next. We have no idea. Everything that we rely on is ephemeral and changing. And that's most of the things. I mean, if you take everything that exists in the world, there's things that are changing and things that are unchanging, and most of the things in our world are changing, and so those things are changing, and we have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know at all. Yeah, I have a friend who is at this moment being moved from a hospital into a hospice. I mean, she's dying, and it's been coloring my world for the last week or so. And so, you know, when I was in her hospital room, when it started snowing, it was the first day of spring, and it was snowing, and I thought, you know, so now I'm seeing, I'm not, now the world is occurring to me as like, she won't know about the spring, she won't know about the snow on the first day of spring. She's not going to know that. But she was in her apartment a week earlier and you know, had a brain aneurysm, and the next minute she's in a hospital, and she didn't plan on that. You know, there wasn't anything to know, and so life is uncertain, and we forget that if we're feeling good normally. So that's the first one. And I think the other thing, like for me, and I don't know if you had this experience, is that one of the things coming out of the 3-year retreat was that people have so many more devices these days. I mean, there were cell phones when I went into retreat, but now everybody has a cell phone, and everyone, you know, if somebody's late, you'll call them and you can know where somebody is, or if you're trying to meet somebody, there feels like there's less mystery. I can know where somebody else is. There's not a time delay where I'm in this state of not knowing. I think I know. And I think it's sort of an interesting illusion that I'm in control because I can know these things, and so much faster. So it was sort of interesting to see this, you know, after 3 years that the world had changed that much. Yeah. So there is no certainty in life. That's the first suffering. The second one is nyompa. Please say nyompa.
Nyompa.
Mepe.
Mepe.
Nyepa.
Nyepa.
Nyompa, mepe, nyepa.
Nyompa, mepe, nyepa.
And nyompa means satisfaction. And what's mepe?
Can't get now.
There is none. That's right. You can't get it. And that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
fire
it
to
is.
it.
Okay, what year did the Rolling Stones?
I don't know. That's the third problem.
So this is the second problem. There is no satisfaction. We're never satisfied. We always want more. And so I think of this as being on a gross and subtle level. You know, like it's, you know, I want a car with nice leather seats, or I want a better job. But it's also on a moment-to-moment basis too. There is no satisfaction. Like, I've been sitting here for a while. I'd really like to move my legs a little, you know. So there's this constant moment-to-moment dissatisfaction. You know, like you're having a nice meal and it's very nice, and then one extra bite throws you over the edge. You know, what was that dissatisfaction then, where all of a sudden it went from being, you know, lovely to being, okay, not so good. And then it doesn't stop, really. You know, it's interesting. My mother, who's 94 years old, and my father, who was 98 when he passed away, my mother today will say, I was really looking forward to us spending our old age together. And it was like, Ma, you had your old age together, you know, and yet it's like, I know, it's the same for me. It's like, you know, she doesn't see it as that she had that, and I know I'm doing the same thing in whatever way that I'm doing. So it doesn't end. We always have it. We always have this problem of not being satisfied in big ways and in small ways and in all kinds of ways. And then the next one is Lu, Yangne, Yangdu, Doorway, Nyepa. Lu means body. Yangne, Yangdu, these two mean over and over. And doorway is, to discard or throw off. And Nyepa, again, is problem. So this is the, what do you think this is? If Tibetan's backwards, this is body, over and over, discard. Anybody want to take a wild guess? Well, we're not there yet. First, it's you have to die, over and over. So you have to die. The kicker is that it's over and over. That's the thing. And I'd like to go to the next one because then we'll talk about the both of those together, 3 and 4. So Yang Yang, Ning Sam, Jorway. Now Yang Yang's an abbreviation. So what does it mean? It's abbreviation of this one.
Over and over.
Over and over, right? Ning Sam, Sam means border. When we were in retreat, we had what was called a tsam. We defined a border in which we did not go out of for 3 years. And so that's a tsam, that's a border. So Ning Sam together, and it's an ancient word, Ning Sam. It means the border between birth and death. The border between birth and death is Ning Sam. Jorway is to join. So this is to come up with the next part is that you have to then take a life over and over again. So you have to take a life over and over again, meaning Ning Sam is the border between life and death, and so you have to cross the border one more time. So when we think about that we have to die, and then that kicker of it being over and over again, it's like, sometimes I think, oh, okay, well, you know, when things feel bad and it's okay, I can just die, it's okay. But if this is true, and I have to be reborn, and I have to be reborn in samsara again, then there's no rest for the weary. You know, we have to die, and then we have to be reborn over and over. So, you know, these two, and actually the last two, when we get to them, you'll see, I think are very acceptable for us. This, the three that, I mean, this we're talking about rebirth, right? This is not something we, you know, we get viscerally. You know, it's not our culture, right? So I just wanted to say a little bit about proving future lives. So I think like I've got -1 minute to prove future lives. Okay.
Good challenge.
So -1 minute there, and by the way, it's in course number 4. It's Proof of Future Lives is a whole course, but so let's see. Just as like an introduction to that. So what is the cause of this cup? What is this cup made of?
Plaster. Or
What?
Plaster.
Plaster? Yeah, or some kind of clay or something like that, right? This cup is made from the main cause, the main material of this cup is clay or plaster or something like that, right? That's the main material. There are other things that made that clay into a cup. You know, it's heated in a some kind of oven, right? That you make pottery in or that kind of thing. And but the main material that is from it is that it's from is clay, right? So then this has a main material, and so then we need to talk about what is our body. So is there a difference between the body and the mind? You can, because a lot of times people think we think the mind is based is the same as the body, but what you need to do in order to prove future lives is talk about the difference between the body and the mind. Okay, so the body you can touch, you can see, you can cut it, you can, all of the senses can be aware of the body, but the mind, you can't touch it. A Buddhist definition of mind is that it's clear and knowing. So this main proof of future lives hinges on that the body and the mind are different. If the body and the mind are different, then what caused a moment of mind? What caused my mind now? And so you would have to say, in the same way that you would say the main material that caused this cup, that was clay, that the main material that caused my mind was a moment of mind before, a moment of awareness before, a moment of clear and knowing before, and that became my mind now. That's just to start thinking about where, if we're talking about past and future lives, so then when the body dies, does the mind necessarily die? If it's of a different material, then maybe, perhaps, the mind doesn't die when the body dies because it's a completely different material. So I don't know if that's clear. I'm trying to say it really fast. Is that like basically, is there some holes, major holes in that for anyone?
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Anyway, it's just start thinking about that. Just start thinking that if the body and mind are different, where do they come from? And if your mind is coming from a moment of mind before, then when your body dies, your mind doesn't necessarily die. So that's just to talk about these two sufferings then. Just to give some background to those two sufferings, which we don't get instinctively in our culture. We don't get those instinctively. Okay, so the next two I think are a lot easier for us to get. Yang, so please say yang. Yang, tomen, do your way. So yang again is over and over. To is high and men is low. Gyorwe is to become. So it's the problem of going from a high position to a low position over and over. We have to keep going from, as soon as we go up and down in our fortunes. And when I thought about this particular suffering, I thought, it's that song, you're riding high in April, shot down in May, right? Frank Sinatra song, riding high in April, and then I had to look up the lyrics for it, So, I've been a puppet, a poet, a pirate, a poet, a pawn and a king. We've been up and down and over and out, and I know one thing. So we've been a pawn and a king. We keep going up and down. So it is in the big sense. And it's also in the little sense too, like the very moment by moment experiences of our lives, not just the big things, not just the pawn and the king. You've got the presidency of the company and then you're out on the street. It's also the moment to moment as well. And then last one is, please say drok. Mepe. Nyepa. Drok means friend or companion. And mepe is there is none. And nyepa is problem. So the sixth problem of human life is we're ultimately alone. And we die alone. And you can have a great partner in your life, and there will be times when you will be alone. You will be alone with them, and that's just how it is. And then ultimately we die alone. My friend in the hospital, her eyes are vacant. She's holding onto my hand, but she's she's alone. I don't know what terror she's going through. I can't, there's not anything I can do. We have that process that we go through alone. So it's the big picture of dying alone, and then it's those, ultimately we have those times when we're alone. So okay, that's the six problems of human life, six sufferings of human life. So you have the next one.
Great. So that was the one question, and now we're on to the last question for the homeworks. Because we're wrapping up renunciation now after 2 weeks on renunciation, and starting next week we start on bodhicitta, which is the middle path, right? So that'll be fun. So through all of these steps of renunciation, we tried to identify, what it is, and we did all these meditations on what it means, how you define it, all these things. So the last thing we need to ask ourselves is, how do you know when you have renunciation? We need a benchmark. We need to be able to say, am I there yet? And if I'm not, I got to go back and keep working, right? So it's useful to have these definitions of like, all right, you think you have renunciation. Let's check and see if you do or not. One day you might, one day you might not. So they say the definition, or to know when you have renunciation, is when you think night and day, day and night, night and day and night. It must be a Frank Sinatra song about that.
Must be.
About getting out of the cycle of suffering. And it's the thing where it's not just thinking about it but doing something about it. It's the terror of being in samsara that's driving you 24/7, 365 to do something about it. That you have had enough suffering, you've seen enough suffering, you've suffered enough, and you know there's a way out, and you're trying to do everything you can to get out of suffering. They call it when you want freedom. They say when you want freedom, because freedom is another code word for nirvana, and that's liberation from samsara is nirvana. So it's called striving for freedom, which means code word is trying to break out of samsara to reach nirvana. So in this context, renunciation, we said last week that you cannot have bodhicitta or great compassion for other beings unless you yourself have a desire. You can't want to get other people out of suffering if you yourself don't even admit that the world is suffering and want to get out of it yourself. There's no way to have compassion for other people's suffering until you've identified your own suffering. And in that regard, compassion and renunciation are very similar. And they say renunciation is actually compassion directed towards yourself, and compassion is renunciation directed towards others. So it's a nice distinction, and it's a nice segue into bodhicitta, which is the desire to help all beings and bring them to nirvana too. In your luggage, in your mind stream's luggage, not just your mind stream, but theirs too. If only it could happen, it would have. So that's just the end of this course's teaching on renunciation. It's a theme though that goes throughout all of the courses, as do all of these three principal paths: renunciation, bodhicitta, and the last one is
Correct feedback.
yes. So, any questions on what we covered today? A little bit of karma, to know where things are at, know how important things are, and then more problems of our suffering world, and then knowing when we've reached renunciation. Meditate on renunciation if you can, because it has to be felt in here. Just like compassion has to be felt in here. It can start up here in your brain, sitting in a class and reading and doing homeworks and quizzes, but the meditation brings it down into your heart and makes it real.
The two ways to meditate on it are to think about how fortunate we are.
Well, there's several meditations. We went over the ones that, so meditate on your own impermanence, which is a little bit of this, but also we meditate on the impermanence of all things and all good things to show that even your mention of the meal seems great and then it turns into suffering. Our lives, no matter what we have, beautiful it all is, it turns into you end up dying alone. It's not truly good. It's good for a small period of time and then it just becomes suffering. So meditating on that impermanence of suffering, meditating on how because everything in our world is done with impure karma right now, that it's only going to result in more samsaric rebirths. That all that we're doing is perpetuating this birth of misery. Then to know about karma and their consequences, both how it keeps us here in samsara and how we can use the wisdom of karma and emptiness to break out of that. And they also say meditating on the suffering of the happier births, which are the two pleasure realms. And that they themselves have a lot of jealousy, and eventually their good karma wears out after a couple of eons, and then they end up going into a hell realm. It's not a permanent. The pleasure realms in samsara are not permanent pleasure. It's temporary. And that's not good enough for us. We want to eliminate all our mental affliction obstacles and attain total enlightenment. So meditating on these is the way to bring about renunciation in your mind and in your heart.
Pardon me. When you say meditate on impermanence, what exactly are you? How do you do that?
Sure.
What's the brain process?
These are analytical meditations we're asking to do now. So in an analytical meditation, it's very important to still the mind first, whatever that is for you. Whether I use the breath today. Get to a point of a focused attention, and then bring your attention to an analysis. So impermanence. Can I think of something that I had that I've lost? Sure. Okay, that's a form of impermanence. Can I think of something that I've had or that I have that I will not lose? And kind of in a way go through an analysis or an internal debate on impermanence. And there's many levels of impermanence. These are kind of gross impermanences. There's the impermanence of every moment, up and downs that we were talking about. That nothing is lasting. Everything is constantly changing. And it's out of our control because it's all coming from karma, our past deeds. And we don't control that right now. We don't control what karma is going to ripen next. And, do an analysis of the impermanence of all of that. And that karma as a seed will always ripen, and then it's going to expire. Whether it's a short expiring, like an anger at your brother, and it's gone within 10 seconds, or longer, you never know. It's all impermanent. And that, so in that, meditate on that, just as an analysis. Try to prove yourself wrong. Say, no, some things are permanent. And try to say, well, what is it then? Try to find something that's permanent. Just come to an analytical understanding of it. And then the point of analytical meditation is when you do get to a point of understanding it that way, hold that. That becomes the object of your attention at that point. And you hold it for as long as you can. And then when your mind is off that object, then you do the analysis back again until you come to a point of conclusion. That becomes the object of your attention in your meditation. And then you hold it single-pointedly as long as you can. And then when the mind wanders again and you've lost that object, do the analysis again. And that's the meditation side. And there are a lot of meditations on impermanence, but that's the analytical one to do for this. So let's just close out with a dedication.
Sunam Yashe